We're here at Pilatus Aircraft's U.S. headquarters in Broomfield, Colorado, to fly the super versatile PC-24 light jet. I've flown a lot of different kinds of aircraft, including many business jets, but this is the first time I'll be flying Pilatus's PC-24. I'm excited to see what it can do. The Pilatus PC-24 is a unique airplane, and its features, amenities, and performance have made it a top seller in the light jet market. In 2023, Pilatus Aircraft announced major upgrades to the PC-24, including structural changes that resulted in a 600-pound payload increase to 3,100 pounds and range with 6 passengers growing to 2,000 nautical miles. Some of these include modifying wing spars and ribs, changing how the nose landing gear is machined, and switching the spoilers to carbon fiber from aluminum. Deliveries of the upgraded aircraft began in 2024. With a massive cargo door, 501 cubic foot cabin, and its ability to take off and land on unpaved runways, the PC-24 has sold more than 500 copies since entering service in 2017. To make it able to land on unpaved runways, Pilatus engineers made the double-slotted Fowler flaps act like mudguards to protect the engines from stray debris, and they fitted the nose gear with a removable fairing to protect the underbody from gravel damage. To experience the new features in the latest version of the PC-24, I jumped at the opportunity to go flying with Pilatus Business Aircraft Chief Pilot Gerard Lambe. With 5 people aboard and 3,220 pounds of fuel, we planned a flight from Rocky Mountain Metro to Telluride, a challenging mountainous airport in the Colorado Rockies. Our takeoff weight was 16,136 pounds, 2,604 pounds below maximum takeoff weight. After starting the right engine, Lambe showed me the quiet power mode, which runs the engine at 75% of idle speed and essentially operates in place of an auxiliary power unit to cooler heat the cabin and power some of the systems. Our rotation speed was just 97 knots with flaps set to 8 degrees. For the first takeoff, Lambe took the controls. After lining up on runway 30 left, he moved the power levers forward until the auto throttles engaged. Each engine delivers 3,420 pounds of thrust at maximum continuous power, but they are capable of 3,600 pounds in automatic power reserve mode, which is only for emergencies. Pilots need to be careful not to push the throttles too far and get into that mode because it adds extra engine cycles and should only be used when absolutely necessary. Lambe showed me how it's necessary to give the yoke a strong pull at rotation speed, and the PC-24 lifted off promptly. After retracting the landing gear and flaps, and with the auto throttles on, we followed the flight director's guidance and turned to the north, while climbing to avoid terrain to the west. After briefly leveling off at 8,000 feet, we continued climbing, eventually leveling off at the PC-24's maximum altitude of flight level 450, where the cabin altitude was 8,000 feet. It didn't take me long to get used to the Honeywell Advanced Cockpit Environment flight deck. For pilots who grew up on Garmin avionics, the Honeywell system takes a little getting used to, but it is a fully capable, powerful, integrated avionics suite. There are a lot of buttons in this cockpit because these aren't touchscreen displays. However, there is a touchscreen controller below the lower multifunction display, and here pilots can select active displays, tune radios, and set transponder codes, access data link communications, swap multifunction displays, and record events. It also acts as a pop-up keyboard for data entry and as a cursor control device as an alternative to the physical control. Level at flight level 450, I kept the power set to max continuous, and the PC-24 accelerated toward the Mach 0.73 MMO barber pole on the airspeed tape. At the speed limit, the auto speed protection system kicked on and instructed the auto throttles to reduce power to prevent overspeeding. Auto speed protection will also help prevent low speed problems by adding power, and it works whether or not the auto throttles are switched on. I flew 2 sets of left and right steep turns, and the PC-24 pirouetted smoothly with zero buffet at that high altitude. Lambe showed me the PC-24's bank limit protection feature, which adds a tactile feedback force to lateral control when the bank angle approaches or exceeds 51 degrees at low roll rates or 49 degrees at high rates of roll, pushing the angle back to 31 degrees before deactivating. The tactile feedback can be overridden using the touch control steering button on the yoke. At ISA +5 and with auto throttles and autopilot on, the PC-24 settled at Mach 0.719 and a true airspeed of 460 knots, burning a total of 924 pounds per hour. Descending toward Telluride, we set up the RNAV Y approach to runway 09. The moving map and vertical situation display clearly depicted the high terrain around the airport as we crossed the cone's VOR at 13,000 feet, then followed the 3.69 degree glide path from the final approach fix. The synthetic vision showed the runway centerline extending from the runway outline well before we could see the runway perched on a mesa visually, and the auto throttle smoothly followed the speed schedule down to 135 knots as we crossed the final approach fix to 105 knots on the glide path, then to the 94-knot VREF as we neared the runway. Lambe switched off the autopilot but kept the auto throttles on until short final, then eased the power off shortly before the PC-24 floated over the numbers
50, 40, 30, 20, 10
for a smooth touchdown. Lambe recommended maximum braking, and the PC-24 stopped with 3,500 feet of runway remaining. As we taxied in, we couldn't help noticing a flight test Gulfstream G800 sitting on the ramp, so of course we parked right next to it. After lunch, we added more fuel, and on the way back we decided to visit Colorado Springs for some touch and goes. Terrain dictates taking off to the west on Telluride's runway 27 and climbing to cross Cone's VOR before turning east.
Right, airborne, climb away, gear. TL is good, we're clear on the terrain. If you want to follow that, it's right off our nose.
The PC-24 easily outpaced the terrain after takeoff. Then we climbed to flight level 330 for the short flight to Colorado Springs. Lambe wanted to demonstrate a single-engine go-around, so we continued south to Pueblo, Colorado, and flew the RNAV runway 17 approach. As we neared the airport, he set the flaps to 15 degrees, retarded the right power lever, and lowered the landing gear. I could feel the automatic trim adjusting the rudder to compensate for the thrust differential.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and go around here. Buttons coming in.
After the go-around, he demonstrated a slow speed recovery, allowing the airspeed to bleed off until the auto throttle engaged to add power as the PC-24 slowed to 112 knots.
Don't normally want to do this.
Gear.
This will help us out here.
Gear.
All throttle engaged.
Gear.
AT engaged.
And then it's going to maintain this speed that's right above. Even though I had set a speed below at 80 knots, it's going to maintain this slower speed as we go out there.
Back to normal, we proceeded to Colorado Springs and runway 17, where winds were gusting to 17 knots and a rain shower slowly passed over the airport. We slowed down to line up with other traffic that was waiting for the rain shower to move on, then did another single engine go around, this time with the left engine at idle.
So I'm completely hands off. It's got trim, look how much is trim in there automatically. And we're flying straight down the runway. I'm gonna get my gear.
Gear. Gear.
It's gonna start accelerating
Gear.
out.
Gear. 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 Gear.
Look at where we're at here.
Gear. 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 Gear.
Flaps are gonna track.
Gear. Gear. Gear.
It's accelerating out nicely. Pull it back to MCT. It's easy peasy, anticlimactic, huh?
Yeah.
I enjoyed some good gusty wind practice during 2 touch and goes at Colorado Springs. The PC-24 handled precisely in the squirrely conditions, and touching down smoothly proved to be no problem. We used just 15 degrees of flaps to make the touch and goes simpler and safer.
Turn a little red rudder. Brakes.
Feel bad at all close to the runway.
Perfect.
50. 40. 30.
There you go, nice. Perfect. Okay, let me make sure. Stand them up.
Standing up. Beats good. Rotating.
Roger.
Muscle
Okay.
brake. Gear up.
Here, yaw dam's coming on.
Returning to Broomfield, the passengers had to endure a bit of bouncing around as we stayed low and maneuvered between the Rocky Mountains and some more rain showers. We kept track of the weather thanks to the Honeywell RDR 7000 weather radar. The wind was blowing straight along runway 30 left and gusting to 33 knots. With full flaps on short final, it looked like the PC-24 was pointing down steeply and that the nose wheel would hit first, but that wasn't the case. I just had to give the yoke a small tug to pull the nose up slightly as we neared the runway, and the PC-24 touched gently on the main wheels, and then the nose wheel followed. Thanks to the strong wind of the spoilers, I hardly had to use any braking. The PC-24 was one of the few jets I'd never flown in recent years, and I'm glad I waited so I could see the new features and get a better perspective on how it compares to the competition. Some of the interesting interior features in the PC-24 include an optional 3-place divan that is 6 feet 6 inches long and folds into a bed, a second row of executive seats that swivels 180 degrees to form a double club seating area, adjustable cargo volume depending on the number of seats, a hard door enclosed forward lavatory, an optional forward galley, and a new Lufthansa Technik in-flight entertainment system with 3D moving map. Pilatus does all the completions for US-bound PC-24s at its Broomfield, Colorado US headquarters. Interior component kits are manufactured by F-List in Austria and shipped to Broomfield, but Pilatus specialists do all the seat covering and customization there too. The work is painstaking and exacting, and no one is rushing to get the job done. Everyone takes their time to make sure the interior appointments match the quality that buyers expect from Pilatus, and the exteriors are part of the process too, with full paint facilities on site. It's no surprise that Pilatus Aircraft has sold so many PC-24s, which is so popular that it takes 2 years from placing an order to taking delivery. From the pilot's perspective, the PC-24 delivers outstanding performance in a light jet that is a pleasure to fly and does exactly what Pilatus promises.